Week 9 was the point at which I had to call quits last marathon training block. I got injured and I just barely made it to the start of that race. This time's different though, I've built back stronger to the point at which I can possibly run a sub 3 hour time. Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Eric. I'm a hobbyist runner from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I have aspirations of running the Boston Marathon. But that's a ways away. For now, we're focusing up on the 2026 Vancouver Marathon in May. I know the last video was a bit of a departure from my usual format, so this one is a return to basics. It's gonna be a pretty bog standard training talk. Week 9 started off with some incredible double-digit temperatures, which meant it was finally shorts weather. A very welcome change from the treadmill running or bundling up I've had to do. Tuesday was the first of 3 sessions this week, and it was gonna be an up-tempo run starting at just slower than goal marathon pace, accelerating to goal marathon pace, and winding up at about half marathon pace. I thought I'd run this one on the track because the weather was so good, but it wasn't meant to be.
Oh yeah, that's not suitable to run on. Now, a bit of snow wouldn't be objectionable, but look down here. Oh yeah, that is like super muddy, so that is not good to run on. Now it could, but it just feels like running on quicksand, so I don't think there's much of a point to staying out here. That's unfortunate. I was hoping that'd be dry enough.
I ended up just running this one around the neighborhood, which is not my preference because A, I can't really film it, and B, people around here are really bad drivers, so I gotta be really careful to observe cars coming and going. Traffic complaints aside, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago my heart rate for up-tempo was trending a bit lower, and I didn't think too much of it at the time because, well, it's on a treadmill and it's indoors and there's a lot more variables, but this time running outside, the result was the same. To reiterate, previously my heart rate for an up-tempo effort would be in the 160s and 170s, which would not be a signifier for a sub 3 time for me, but now it's trending towards the 150s and 160s, which is a very good sign that I'm on the right track. Right track? Oh my god, is that a pun? Ah, damn it. Wednesday and Thursday had back-to-back easy runs. My legs felt surprisingly good despite the beating I gave them on Tuesday, but Thursday I decided to call things short by 1K because there were some really high winds. And those winds were a sign that things weren't right because it snowed again. This truly is the winter that won't quit, and of course it did mean more shoveling, about 2 hours worth, with some really wet and heavy snow.
Just when I thought it was snowed out, they snowed me back in. Alright, half-baked Al Pacino impressions aside, today is pretty brutal, starting at about 6:30. It's not like 7:30 like that other session, so I am happy for that. But the session is going to be 10 by 800 meters at about 5K race effort. And I'm saying effort because there are going to be incline sections here, I believe 3, maybe 4. Because they're a bit shorter, I'm gonna try to run them a few seconds faster than usual. Not at marathon race pace, mind you, but still a little bit faster than that 426 to 430 per kilometer we talked about. All right, enough yapping, let's get it.
The first 4 reps would be run on a flat, the next 4 would be run on a 6.5% grade hill, and the last 2 would be run on a flat. The hill reps were run at 422 per kilometer, which is almost an entire minute per kilometer slower than the flat reps. But the amount of vertical being done really did make up for it, and going by the heart rate data and my own subjective feeling, it felt like, one of the flat reps, although very different because of course I'm not very good at vertical, so it was a little more taxing. But I gotta say, for those last 2 flat reps, it felt like I was flying because, well, I was running on a flat again after going up a hill. Thankfully, the snow didn't accumulate too much, and I managed to do Saturday's recovery run outside. Now, I'm not sure if it's the rapidly changing weather or fatigue catching up with me, but despite getting one of my best sleeps ever, I woke up on Sunday with a pretty bad headache. Coupling that with the blistering 50km/h winds outside, I decided to do the 25K steady run on the cards indoors on the treadmill. The headaches weren't the only thing, I also had some GI distress which really caught me off guard because usually I don't get much, if any. Now normally I would be livid about this, but going back to the ground rules I set in week 1, I didn't get nothing out of this. It certainly wasn't 100%, but it certainly wasn't 0. And that would close out week 9, which had an overall mileage of 110K, which in the grand scheme of things, felt pretty comfortable. Week 10 would start off with 2 easy runs. The first on Monday was 11K. I took this one a lot easier because, well, I had just run the most steady kilometers I ever ran the day before, and that was the right call. Tuesday's 13K easy would feature my usual pace once again. Wednesday was something of a special session. It was 4x3K at half marathon race pace. To progress my hill training, I decided to place 3 1200 meter hills in 3 of these 4 reps. The first rep was run as a flat, kind of like a warm-up. The second had the hill in the middle, the third in the beginning, and the fourth at the very end, when my legs were at their most tired. I know this is a super convoluted workout and I'm tripping over my own words just trying to recount it to you guys, but placing that hill at different intervals really does play with your mental endurance, which is going to be key for Vancouver because, well, the Camosun Hill, again, is not the only tough spot out there. There's a few more in the back half. Now, the plan I'm using did do something weird. For Thursday and Friday, there was a 15K and the 10K following that brutal workout, which didn't really make sense to me because why am I running the 15K the day after that and not the 10K? You know, I just took a metaphorical baseball bat to my legs. And you know, I want to be good for Saturday's session. Why is the easier run not here? Anyways, I used my own discretion. I swapped the runs and everything was right. And speaking of Saturday's session, it was an absolute gauntlet. It was 32.5K all in, with 20K of that being steady and then 8K being at or faster than goal marathon pace. And also the description of steady pace was getting slightly faster. In the opening phases of the plan, it was 40 to 50 seconds per kilometer slower than goal marathon pace. Now it was 20 to 30, so I had my work cut out for me. Normally this would be a challenge, but there was an extra wrinkle today because, well, there was a lot of leftover sand outside which made traction on the roads really hard to come by. Which is ironic because during the winters we drop bags and bags and bags of this stuff to get traction on the ice, but now that everything's melted, well, it's having the opposite effect. But there was one thing working in my favor, and that was the lack of wind. I love a tailwind as much as the next guy, but honestly when it comes to marathon running, still winds are really great, and I'm looking forward to that because Vancouver is definitely not a windy city. And to cap it off, I did run a few of these goal pace kilometers a bit faster, so things are going really good. Sunday was a recovery run, and I think my fitness is turning a corner here because previously I would feel stiff and achy all the way through for these, but for this one I was loosening up by the end and it felt really good. And that rounds out week 10, which had an overall mileage of 114 kilometers. In terms of overall progress, I'm pretty pleased with the way things are going right now. Previously, I'd used some more reserved language around this, but you know, it's getting to that point in the block where things are starting to come together, and I can see, okay, like a sub 3 is definitely in the cards, despite a slightly more difficult course. Now there is still the matter of nutrition, travel, and race day logistics to figure out, but I'll be covering that in the next video, so subscribe to see that. Also, if you made this far into this one, consider giving it a like, best way to help out the channel, and as always, thank you so much for watching.